All right, boom. Welcome back. Settle in, grab your popcorn, and prepare to be scared. Let's take it back to the year 1960, where your boy Alfred Hitchcock directed Psycho. So, if you're ready to watch mystery, murder, cross-dressing, and Vivian Lee's feet, then you're in the right place. During her lunch break, you have the attractive blonde, our lead character, Marion, waking up in bed beside her boyfriend, Sam, in a cheap motel. After having sex, of course. Yes, even in the 60s, your grandparents were clapping cheeks. We learn that Sam is sneaking around with Marion after his divorce. So in other words, Marion is a side chick. Later on, Marion returns to her office assistant job and complains about a headache that obviously she's faking. Right before her boss enters in with a new client, a man named Mr. Cassidy. The boss wants to keep professionalism and get on with the meeting. However, Mr. Cassidy tries to spit some game at Marion by, subtly flirting. Subtly and awfully, mind you. He mentioned that he can buy a house for his daughter or a car or whatever his fat ass can afford. Afterwards, he drops a stack of cash on her desk. Precisely $40,000. $40,000 that's meant to go to Marion's boss. The boss instructs Marion to drop the money off at the bank later on. Marion agrees to do so and asks her boss if she can go home after the bank drop, and the boss says yes, she can do so. Later on, at her apartment, we see Marion packing up her luggage on the bed beside a shit ton of cash, that cash being the $40,000 that's meant to go to the bank. Some time passes on, and Marion drives a car through the city, stops at a traffic light, and almost by chance, we can see her boss crossing the street. Now, he makes direct eye contact with Marion, and he doesn't think much about it, but Marion is pretty much pissing her panties right now. The next morning, a police driver pulls up to her car on the side of the road. He walks up and sees Marion lazy ass sleeping after she done robbed her boss. She wakes up in a state of shock and then nervously rushes through the cop's line of questioning. Because she's acting a little sus, the cop is looking at her like she done committed a robbery, which she indeed did. Paranoia later causes her to believe that the cop is following her, tailing her. Hours pass by, and later at a car dealership, Marion is looking to swap her car in a hurry. While there, the sunglasses cop from behind watches her from across the street. She notices him and tries to rush the deal with the salesman. She makes an excuse to the salesman to go into the bathroom, and in the bathroom we can see Marion removing $700 from the envelope. Now she uses that $700 plus the car that she's currently driving to then go and trade it in with the salesman. And after she purchases a new car, she hits the road, almost forgetting her luggage behind her, and then leaves the cop behind. Now, while on the road at nighttime, we see a heavy rainstorm causes Marion to stop at the infamous Bates Motel. After honking her horn for service, Norman Bates comes out to greet her and bring her inside. Inside, she logs in the registrar book, where Norman makes up his mind on what to do with her, and we can see that because he purposely gives her cabin 1 key after he was going to give her another key. Now Norman carries some of her luggage inside and shows her around the cabin, then later invites her to dinner. She accepts. While they make a friendship, or at least she thinks it's a friendship, Norman pretty much wants to bang her, but he's too coy about it. While unpacking her luggage, Marion overhears Norman's mother berating him about the dinner. So instead of going up to the house for dinner, they instead have dinner inside of Norman's office. After dinner, Marion excuses herself to get ready for bed. As she undresses for a shower, Norman watches her through a peephole. We see Marion taking a normal shower, or at least what she considered to be a normal shower, like any other shower. And then suddenly we see this old woman in the shadow stabbing her to death, butchering her to death. But unfortunately, the old woman escapes, leaving Marion bleeding in the shower. A few moments later, we see Norman running down from the house to witness the aftermath, the bloody aftermath. And through a series of shots later, Norman methodically hides all of the evidence and traces of Marion ever being on the property. A few days later, news regarding Marion's disappearance gets out. Sam hears the news from Marion's sister, Lila. An inquisitive detective, Arbogast, a PI, arrives on the scene to question them both. Detective Arbogast travels to the Bates Motel, where he questions Norman. Arbogast finds Marion's name in the register book, and as Arbogast inches closer toward the truth, Norman becomes nervous. So much so that he becomes even skittish. After further investigation, Arbogast becomes more suspicious and sneaks into the Bates Motel to snoop around. A few moments later, Arbogast steps upstairs where the killer woman, Norman's mother, surprises him by stabbing him to death in the face. And then he falls on the ground, and then, she finishes the rest, she stabs him, yada. Anyways, a few days later, after not hearing anything back from Arbogast, Lila grows impatient and demands that Sam and she go looking for Arbogast. Sam stops her, then heads out alone, leaving Lila to wait for Marion in case she pops back up. Sam arrives at the Bates Motel, yelling for Arbogast, and this alerts Norman, who is in the earshot nearby. Sam and Lila visit a sheriff to explain the story later that night. The sheriff calls Norman to question him over the phone. However, he doesn't expect Norman because he also knows Norman since he was a child. And we learn that Norman's mother has been dead over 10 years. So therefore, it couldn't be her who killed Marion or Arbogast. So after the sheriff blows them off again, Sam and Lila hit the road to the Bates Motel. While driving there, they hatch a plan to lie to Norman that they're both married on their honeymoon. Sam and Lila both arrive at the Bates Motel in search of Norman, where they later find Norman, who gives them the suspicious vibes right off the bat. After they've both checked in, Sam keeps Norman distracted while Lila sneaks up into the house in search for Mrs. Bates. While in the house, Lila peeks in room to room in search for Mrs. Bates. As this happens, Sam, downstairs in the office with Norman, interrogates Norman with intense pressure. Norman tries to exit the room, but Sam blocks him. Norman knocks Sam out and then rushes into the house to stop Lila from speaking to his mother. Lila runs downstairs to hide from Norman as she sees him approach from the window. While in the basement of the Bates house, Lila sees the back of Mrs. Bates against the wall. Lila creeps up slowly and spins her around to realize it's a corpse in old lady clothes. Ah! Scares the shit out of Lila. Suddenly, Norman pops into the basement, also wearing old lady clothes, but we see him psychotically wielding a knife, ready to kill Lila. But just luckily in time, Sam pops in from behind and restrains Norman, and the old lady's clothes slowly rip off Norman to expose who he really is. After a crowd of people witnessed the arrest of Norman Bates, later that night, a psychiatrist explained that Norman has become his mother, at least in his mind, that is. We learned that not only did Norman Bates murder his mother, but also Marion, Arbogast, those two missing girls whom we just learned about at the end of the film, and also his own mother and his lover. The mother's lover. Norman, arrested, remains trapped in the mind of his mother. The police recover Marion's car from the swamp and, well, boom, that's just how movies ended back in the day. All right, boom! That's been a recap of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Pause. Anytime you say Hitchcock, you gotta say pause. Thank you for watching. Please click the subscribe button and, more importantly, the like button. Stay tuned for more, and I'll check your ground again. Peace!